I got a question for you. I'm out at Onondaga State Park in the heart of the Ozarks. Well, maybe not the heart, maybe like the upper left lung of the Ozarks, but I'm on a trail called Deer Run Trail that I've never been on before. Ooh, here's my question. Is it wise for me to eat random berries on the side of the trail? Ooh, tarp. Not ready yet. Here's my question for you. I've never been on this trail before. It's about an hour to dark. I'm by myself. Is it wise for me to be doing this? Is that a wise decision that I've made? What if I give you some more context? What if I told you it's only a 2-mile loop, that I talked to the ranger before I started, that even though I didn't bring a flashlight, I do have my phone, which has a flashlight on it, and I don't think I'm gonna get dehydrated on a 2-mile walk. What do you think? Is it still wise? We don't talk about wisdom much anymore, do we? Have you thought about that culturally? We just don't talk about being wise or making wise decisions much anymore. We talk about what gets us ahead, what advances us, who we like politically, but we don't talk about what's wise. Even though wisdom and the ascertaining of wisdom has been one of the primary concerns for humans for thousands of years. Actually, in the Old Testament, there's an entire book called the Book of Proverbs, which is a collection of wise sayings. And that book is primarily concerned with the question, what is wisdom? How do I be wise? Wisdom, I think the best summary of the definition the Book of Proverbs gives is that wisdom is the ability to make good decisions in complex situations. Make good decisions in complex situations. Now, you might know the Book of Proverbs is a scattered collection of saying, but actually it has some structure to it. And in the beginning of the Book of Proverbs, we have a father who is teaching his son. That's the way it's all set up. It's this discussion concerning Hokmah, the Hebrew word for wisdom. And the father's primary concern is not how far his son can hit a baseball or throw a football or play a video game or, I don't know, get into the right school or get the right grades. It's not his intellectual capacity. There's a cool black caterpillar right there. But it's his ability to be wise. And I want us to pick up in our wandering discussion with chapter 4 of Proverbs. This looks like a good spot to stop right up here. I'll turn you around on the road and we'll read some scripture together. Proverbs chapter 4. He begins like this. I'm reading from the ESV. Hear, O son, a father's instructions. Be attentive that you may gain insight, for I give you good precepts. Do not forsake my teaching. When I was a son with my father, tender, the only one in the sight of my mother, he taught me and said to me, let your heart hold fast my words. Give my commandments and live. Get wisdom. Get insight. And don't forget. Do not turn away from the words of my mouth. Do not forsake her, and she will keep you. Love her, and she will guard you. So the father teaching his son says, ascertain, do whatever it costs to get wise, to gain wisdom, to be able to make good decisions in the complex situations in all areas of your life. And oh, there's a deer right here. Can you see the deer? Oh, that was awesome. She's still laying down right down there. I surprised her. But the father is teaching the son this, and then he, the word is anthropomorphizes. He personifies wisdom, and she takes on character. And maybe you saw this here, don't forsake her, and she will keep you. Love her, and she will guard you. The beginning of wisdom is this: get wisdom. Get wise. Do whatever it costs to be wise. And whatever you get insight. Prize her highly. Treat her well, and she will exalt you. She will honor you if you embrace her. She will place on your head a graceful garland. She will bestow on you a beautiful crown. Hear, my son, and accept my words, that the years of your life may be many. I have taught you the way of wisdom. I have led you on the paths of uprightness. So he kind of gives us this metaphor. Wisdom is this woman that you should yearn for, you should long for, you should get her at all cost. And when you do, hold on to her, cling to her. And then he moves into this metaphor of the road. And he says, make sure you're taking the right paths. Stay on the right paths. When you walk, your step will not be hampered. And if you run, you will not stumble. Keep hold of instruction. Do not let go. Guard her, for she is your life. Do not enter the path of wicked, and do not walk in the way of the evil. Avoid it. Do not go on it. Turn away from it and pass on. For they cannot sleep unless they have done wrong. They are robbed of sleep unless they have made someone stumble. All right, so he gives the opposite. So like on the one hand, there's wisdom. When you seek after her, we need to go her way. But on the others, there's the opposite side of wisdom. It's destruction. They, listen to this description, they eat the bread of wickedness and drink the wine of violence. Okay, so how do you know if you have wandered from wisdom? Maybe we'll see this deer again as we walk. How do you know if you have wandered from wisdom? If you are following ways that are unwise? Well, the Father says here, the first is that you will notice the path that is opposite the way of wisdom is the path that leads to destruction. It leads to violence. I'm reminded of one of my favorite scenes from The Office when Michael follows his GPS, and even though the lake is right in front of him, he drives his car straight into the water because he has no ability to make a wise decision in the moment, and instead he just drives right into the lake. I think some of us would follow a culture and a world and many voices straight into destruction and violence. If the voices you are listening to for wisdom and the path you are on is a path that continually leads to violence and leads to destruction, the destruction of others for the gain and purpose of self, then that is not the way of wisdom. But there's another way too. He says not only does it lead to destruction, but also this is the one I wanted you to see, and I think this maybe even summarizes our world up a lot better now. In chapter 5, he says, my son, be attentive to my wisdom. Incline your ear to my understanding, that you may keep discretion, and your lips may guard knowledge. For the lips of a forbidden woman drip honey. Okay, so on the one side, he's personified wisdom as this woman that you want. She's the faithful spouse of your life. She will stand by you if you stand by her. But there's another way. There's a path that's antagonistic to wisdom. There's a woman that is like an adulteress. And her lips are the lips of a forbidden woman. They drip honey. Everything she says is just over the top, totally sweet. Her speech is smoother than oil. But in the end, even though she whispers all these beautiful things in your ear, in the end, she's as bitter as wormwood. She's as sharp as a two-edged sword. Her feet go down to death. Her steps follow to the paths of Sheol. She does not ponder the path of life. Her ways wander, and she does not know it. I was trying to get to my friend's house the other day, and I was following my GPS, but I was also on a phone call at the same time. And that was a terrible 1-2 punch because I found myself, I kept missing the turn on my GPS where it showed me to go. Now, I didn't end up in destruction or in the water like Michael Scott did, but I seriously ended up driving in a circle 3 times around the same neighborhood, the same exact path. 3 different times, just wandering around. So on the one hand, there's when we wander from wisdom, on the one hand, we find that it leads to destruction. But I think there's the other hand where it doesn't always just lead immediately to destruction. It just leads to this wandering worthlessness to our lives, we find ourselves over and over again just coming back to the same point. No matter how many times we choose the path, we come back to the same spot. We get stuck in the same place. And maybe that's really where you feel like you're at today. It's not that your life is just destruction all the time, but rather that you keep asking yourself, how do I keep ending up here again? How is it that I keep in my life ending up in the same place that I don't want to be in over and over again? And I would say we can do that in all sorts of different areas of our life, right? We can do that in our spiritual life, of course. We can do it in our walk with God, but we can do it in our jobs. We can do it in our relationships. We can do it with money. Some of us are terrible about doing that with money. We can do that with our own embodied existence, with our physicality, with our exercise and our diet and our routines. We do this maybe with our sexuality a lot. We just come back and end up in the same place. And the truth is, it's because we have wandered off after the adulterous woman, and we have wandered from the way of wisdom. If you find yourself in some area of your life, this is my challenge to you this week, coming up in the same place over and over again. The Proverbs then offer all of these different, just incredibly beautiful sayings about different things, about different areas of life. All that I talked about, your job, your sexuality, your physicality, or all these different areas. I would encourage you, Google us, ask just for a proverb. Put Google in and ask for a proverb that will help you from the book of Proverbs. Then I want you to do this very specifically. I want you to memorize that proverb, say it every morning, write it every morning till it's memorized, and then take that proverb as a prayer to God and ask Him to give you the spirit to choose the wise way. Say, God, I want to fulfill this proverb in my life. I want to be wise in this area of my life. Will you enable the Spirit in my life to make this happen? And then you'll choose the right path, the glorious path.